And we welcome you to another edition of This is Wrestling as we look ahead to AEW Dynasty coming up in the city of brotherly love. It is Versage, Zach McGibbon, and we'll call him, at least for now, our AEW expert / fanboy, Ben Soubliere. Zach, first of all, nice to be able to talk to you again this week. We got a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do. It's a busy week. It's going to be a busy couple of weeks, really, in wrestling. But so kicks off here with our preview of AEW Dynasty.
And the aforementioned, do you want to go with expert or fanboy?
Let's go enthusiast.
Enthusiast, yes. I like that.
He met us in the middle.
Yes, I like that.
You know what? This is going to be a good show, Zach. I didn't think we would get that. But yes, a lot to look forward to, including the main event. Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship. Ben, let's get some thoughts from you just on the lead up to Dynasty and maybe what you've liked, not liked over the last few weeks for AEW television. I think like any television show, there's been some good things, there's been some bad things, there's been some wonder why that happened things going on. But for AEW, do you think they're on a good path here towards AEW Dynasty?
I think that it's suffered a little bit on the build-up just with the short turnaround from Revolution. I have always felt that the happy spot for AEW is to have meaningful TV, and to have meaningful TV, you kind of need to spread out your pay-per-views, but they've decided that Dynasty is basically a staple now on their pay-per-view schedule. So I think the build-up has been okay. I think some of it has been good and others have just been okay. So for me, I think I've really enjoyed parts of Swerve versus Moxley build-up. I really enjoyed the blow-off on Dynamite for a couple of different reasons that I can get into after when we get to our actual predictions. The other matches kind of on the card in terms of like the trios match and some of the tag team stuff, I feel like this card's a little top-heavy in that there's a lot of kind of filler as we're going into Double or Nothing, and then finally into the really big build of All In. So I would say mixed review on the build up. Even the card itself on paper, I would say it's probably one of the weaker AEW cards in the last little while, but very top heavy, and I'm very excited for those top of the card matches.
What about you, Zach? We've been a little down on the WWE programming as of late, and maybe for a few years, but I was back on the train for a while, and I want to stay on the train, but I feel like I'm falling off. But for AEW, how have you felt about the last, few weeks of television Dynamite Collision leading up to Dynasty?
I think the TV has been pretty good. I don't think it's been stellar or out of this world or anything like that, but considering some of the TV we got a few months ago, it's especially in the latter half of 2024, I think this has been some pretty good week-to-week television. And I think for what they were able to put together in a short turnaround for this pay-per-view, a couple of these matches here, I think they've done a good job, again, considering how much time they've had to push some of these matches. Other matches here aren't as, wow in my minds as I would like. But like what Ben mentioned, I think it just goes back to, I think they've got a hot main event going in with the Moxley Swerve stuff that is going to lead to some very interesting reactions to wherever it may go when it comes to that main event. And I think there's some other matches here that might over-deliver and might actually be good, better than people think. But I look at the pay-per-view and the card as it stands right now, and I do think there's some matches where I do wonder why it would be on a pay-per-view like this. But then in other aspects, I think it is a bit top-heavy, and you are got a pretty exciting main event on where things could go for AEW.
So I'm going to get this out of the way really early so I don't dwell on it, because sometimes, guys, I do dwell on things. and don't kind of pick the scab over and over. And I
Yeah.
don't want to do that. But I'm going to tell you that leading up to AEW Dynasty and Will Ospreay coming off of the incredible, really, series, but the finale against Kyle Fletcher in the cage, wrestling on this show, saying that he is going to be in the main event of All In. He focused, he targeted, he made sure that everybody knew that after that match, he was gunning for the world title. So the first pay-per-view, he's wrestling Kevin Knight. Ben, you're going to have to explain this to me as to why a first round match of a tournament that ends at your next pay-per-view is on this pay-per-view from basically a guy that we all feel whether he deserves the AEW World Championship. He certainly is one of the best wrestlers in the world. Why he's wrestling a guy that 99% of the wrestling audience has no idea who this guy is on a pay-per-view right after he declared that he was going to be there. And when he comes to the ring, he's 11-0. He's got the most wins in AEW in 2025. Here he is against Kevin Knight. Come on. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous, Ben.
I mean, I gotta explain this one. It was supposed to be Switchblade. Switchblade got hurt, it seems like, on Collision. Unfortunately, that's kind of derailed their plan for the pay-per-view. I think, if memory serves, the first three people to declare themselves for the Owen were Ospreay, Switchblade, and Hangman. So I think if you were going into the pay-per-view and you knew that first round matchup was going to be Ospreay versus Switchblade, I don't think anybody's complaining. Unfortunately, Switchblade's hurt, so they subbed in the person that he was competing against on Collision, I think,
Yes.
when he got hurt, into the match. So I think that's why you get it. And similar to kind of what I said earlier about some of these matches kind of being not necessarily marquee matches, this is what you end up with. I would have been super excited for Switchblade versus Will Ospreay. Probably would have been potentially a show stealer / match of the night. And unfortunately, you got to deal with the cards that you have in your hand. And this is what Tony Khan has kind of come up with in short notice, because I think Switchblade was hurt on Saturday night.
Yeah, and that's fine. And sorry, Zach, I knew you were going to say something, but you know what? It's not about the fact that Jay White got hurt. I'm not going to let the booker off of the hook to go, okay, Jay White got hurt. Who else do we have? Let me see. Oh, right. MJF's not wrestling. Oh, right. Hangman Page isn't wrestling. There are 50 guys in that locker room I'd be picking over Kevin Knight against Will Ospreay on a pay-per-view. You are paying to see this. I'm not letting them off the hook. Put him in against, I don't know, Hologram. Put him in against somebody else put him in against Shibata. I don't know. Like, there's a million guys you could put him in. Put him in against Samoa Joe. I don't know. I don't understand this one.
I don't disagree, especially because not super familiar with Kevin Knight myself. So I honestly don't know what to expect out of the match. I probably would have gone back to the well and give me another Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay match, because I can't get enough of that. The only thing I will disagree with is that there's no way it's going to be Hangman, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be your finals of the Owen is Hangman coming out of the right side of the bracket and Ospreay coming out of the left.
So you think if they wrestled the Dynasty just to wrestle and then met up again in the finals, that would be a bad thing?
No, but I think there would be more excitement for their first proper match against each other, because they've only really faced off against each other in a bit of a 6-man tag match years ago. So my feeling is that if you're going to do that match, you don't want to do it on short notice. You want to have the build up.
So
Okay.
I'll say this when it comes to the match. So I fall in line in the sense of what Lee's saying, that as a booker, you will always get bad hands dealt with. I mentioned on the last episode with Paul Levesque and how everything's been going with the John Cena and Cody Rhodes stuff. And, you know, they could talk about all the rocks coming in and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility as a booker to come up with different plans and be able to go on the fly and have to change things up if need be. So I agree with Lee on that sense. I think in the sense of Kevin Knight, so have some limited viewing of Kevin Knight just from watching New Japan. He was pretty featured guy. He would be generally in the IWGP tag team mix. He tag teamed with Kushida as the Intergalactic Jet Setters in New Japan, and he was somebody
up for worst names in wrestling.
Well, there you go. Not selling Lee on this so far,
No,
but
at all.
But the thing with Kevin Knight is that he's a younger guy. He's 28, and he's somebody that has been steadily getting better and better as the year goes on. WWE was interested in him as well, and this is a big opportunity here against Will Ospreay, where, you know, sometimes these kind of matches, it could be like a big prove it thing, right? And he was just recently announced to be signed to AEW. So this is an opportunity for Kevin Knight here to showcase himself and get himself established with this audience. And who better to get himself established with than with Will Ospreay? Like we've seen time and time again, when you put in two really great wrestlers, even if a guy loses, if they go out there and have a great match, it doesn't hurt them as much if they come out like we saw it a couple years ago now with Mercedes Moné and who's the girl now on NXT, Stephanie Vaquer. And, you know, Vaquer lost, but look at what happened to her. She was able to get a big spot on NXT, and nobody knew who Stephanie Vaquer was. So this could be an opportunity here for Kevin Knight to have something similar, especially against a guy like Will Ospreay. And I'll say this, every time I've seen Kevin Knight, he's not a slouch in the ring. He's well trained. He comes from the New Japan dojo. So I'm interested to see where this match goes. Would I have loved to have seen Will Ospreay versus Jay White? Absolutely. I remember their match at Ring of Honor many years ago and thinking, man, this is just incredible, and wondering how these two guys have evolved and as performers. Obviously, the Jay White injury sucks, but this could be an interesting opportunity to try and get a showcase match here for Kevin Knight.
Yeah, it could be, and I'm really hopeful that it'll be a good match. But again, 99% of the audience is like, that's your future world champion going up against a jobber on a pay-per-view. That's what people think going in, because they don't know who Kevin Knight is, whether he's good or bad. I'd be complaining if this were the main event on a Dynamite. Let alone I'm paying money to see Kevin Knight against Will Ospreay. There's just too many other choices to be made on this roster that you're paying. Put him in there against Roderick Strong. How about that?
That would be fun.
Yeah. For
go back to Orange Cassidy.
Sure.
Rematch from Forbidden Door.
He's also hurt too, though, apparently, Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. What about Pac?
That would be
He's
fun.
in the trio match.
But he's in the trios match. That's true.
Okay. I'm not going to belabor the point. He should never be facing Kevin Knight on a pay-per-view. End of story. And if Booker of the Year did this, Zach could be all over it. Okay? That's Triple H, by the way.
I did say, I agreed with you on the
fall
booking.
in line, but this could be a pretty good match. This could be, and I know, I hear you. You wouldn't be saying that with Triple H, though.
No, but this is unknowns with Kevin Knight. Like, we don't know what's going to be with Kevin Knight.
Zach, that is the point. It's a pay-per-view.
But we saw that as well with Kenny Omega and what was his name? Vikingo on Dynamite. And people were like, oh, why they booked this match? Then Vikingo and Kenny Omega had a great match.
It's on
people
free
still
TV.
talk about it. Yes.
Okay. It's on free TV.
I don't know. If I would be on your side if it was like somebody else on the roster that's like a Griff Garrison. Like if it was Griff Garrison, then I'm on your side.
Double G. I like Griff Garrison.
What a shocker there. What's your favorite Griff Garrison match there, Lee?
I saw him live at Collision in Jacksonville a couple months ago. He was fantastic.
Was that your favorite Griff Garrison match? Or was that your first Griff Garrison match?
Yeah, probably my first. So it is my favorite, but hey. Anyway, I just don't like the idea. So I did belabor the point, and you guys made no points to counter my great point. So we'll move on.
I thought I made some pretty decent points, but
I know you did. The guy's an unknown. You don't know what could happen. Yeah, I know.
That could be an attraction for some people, though. Like, the unknown is interesting for some people.
I know. And here's the thing. Before I get too, you know what, Zach? You're riling me up now. Because Speedball Mike Bailey came in, right?
Yep.
Mystery opponent. Now Kevin Knight, the unknown. Oh, what do we have in the Owen? We have another mystery spot. Enough. 3 of them in like 6 weeks. And not in like just, hey, a guy's coming out on television. It's like the international title against Will Ospreay on a pay-per-view in the Owen. Mystery. Okay.
Ben, remind me to call off the surprise birthday party we have planned for Versage.
I was going to say, Lee would not be a fan of attending mystery wrestling, is the sound of.
No, not a big fan, it sounds like. No.
If there's more comedy than coming from you two, maybe I will be happy. All right. I'm really interested, and we'll start with you, Ben, on the feud between Daniel Garcia and Adam Cole. The match has no time limit. Like somehow I was going to be involved in a 15-minute time limit on a pay-per-view. But singles match for the AEW TNT Championship, no outside interference, because of course they've had outside interference and they've had the time limit draws. What do you make of this feud so far? And does it culminate here at Dynasty?
I literally couldn't care less about this this feud. Please get the AEW or the TNT Championship off of Daniel Garcia. Adam Cole's kind of needed a feud to reinvigorate him, and I don't think this is it. I have no doubts the match will be solid, but yeah, this match doesn't do anything for me. The build doesn't do anything for me. I want to see the undisputed era of NXT Black and Gold, not this Kingdom incarnation of them. And I think in order to get back to where they are, they haven't been showcased possibly at all, Bennett and Taven, but they need to find a way to get Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly into meaningful matches. And for me, Daniel Garcia is not it. So that's how I feel about this build.
I'll say enthusiast and not fanboy anymore, because that was a non-fanboy answer. What about you, Zach?
Yeah.
Intrigued here?
No, I mean, on paper, like I want to get into it because I like both of these guys. I think Adam Cole has kind of taken a crap kicking over the last couple of months. That's kind of felt a little much for me. Like, I'm not saying he's been excellent or anything like that, but boy, have they kind of beaten this guy down over and over. And it just shows in his confidence as well in the last couple of months. So on paper, I like the idea of having Daniel Garcia take on Adam Cole, and I think these two are good wrestlers. But like what Ben said, the build hasn't really been there for me when it comes to this. It wouldn't shock me if this ends up being a good match. It's just going into it, I'm not really feeling it. And like what Ben said, the TNT Championship has just kind of been stagnating right now, and it needs to get back to a prominent position. And if that means putting the belt on Adam Cole and reigniting his push, then so be it. But this hasn't really caught my attention.
I want to like Adam Cole and I want to like Daniel Garcia more than I do. And I don't know if this match can get me into it or not. I hope so, because I really like both guys individually. But I want to lean on something that you just said, Zach, because I agree with you. Adam Cole's confidence looks on television like he doesn't have nearly the same that he did in that undisputed Black and Gold era. Do you think you can lean into that a little bit?
I think you could. I think there's a way to do that. It would be tough because you don't want to lean into it too hard to where it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy where he just continues to go down in terms of confidence, and they point it out. But I think there is a way to work it where you kind of build him back up, and you have, whether it be the Undisputed Era or whatnot, whatever the tag team's called, try and will him back in and try and reignite the old Adam Cole that we know from, the late 2010s to early 2020s, where he was a really fun wrestler to watch. So I think there's a way to do it. You just can't harp on it so much and beat it down, because then you'll have the opposite effect.
Do you like that idea or not, Ben?
Nah.
No.
I just want Adam Cole to be the guy that came out at All In at the end of the show and joined the Elite, like that brash, cocky, arrogant Adam Cole. I don't need a storyline where he needs to I don't need how Adam Cole got his groove back. I just need Adam Cole to get his groove back, and for the Undisputed Era / Kingdom / United, whatever you want to call them, to be more important, and I think maybe the faction works better as heels than as faces and as sleazy bad guys, and with Cool Kyle and all that sort of stuff. And maybe that's what the problem, or that's where I feel I'm not as engaged in this storyline, is because of that. But no, I don't want to see down on his luck Adam Cole. I want to see like the leader of the Bullet Club, Adam Cole.
Yeah, but he is down on his luck, though. I guess that's the only point, is like, he is, when you watch him wrestle and you know what he was before, he looks like a guy that's lost his confidence. That's not a gimmick. He just looks like that. So
yeah, I guess my point is, I don't think I need to see that played out on TV. He just needs to, give himself a kick in the rear end and figure it out. I don't know if that means putting him in matches that will actually test and challenge him. Things like opponents like Will Ospreay or Kyle Fletcher or whoever it is, to kind of like reinvigorate him as a competitor. But they need to do it quick.
Can I throw this opponent out there to maybe try and reinvigorate him? As this might be more of a call for NXT fans, and this is somebody you could utilize potentially. Maybe you could go back to Ricochet and do Adam Cole versus Ricochet. They've got good chemistry with each other, and it's that could be something you could do as well.
Yeah, I'm, as much as I was just pushing Ben there, I want to see sleazy Adam Cole back as well.
Yeah,
because that's the best Adam Cole.
You don't want to do the Happy Corbin style storyline of Adam Cole?
No, listen, as the fantastic host of this program, I have to ask the hard-hitting questions.
There you go.
But I want to see sleazy Adam Cole. I want to see Undisputed Era, and I have no idea why they're not going back to this. And it does remind me, who do we think is going to win this match? Do we think Adam Cole gets the title here?
I'm picking Adam Cole, yes.
Ben, I didn't ask you in the first match, because if somebody picks Kevin Knight...
Look, I make some bad picks, but I'm not going to go that far.
I was going to try and sell you on Kevin Knight.
You went the opposite direction, so...
I know. That's how I really feel. But there was something in me that wanted to just do this whole show and sell you on Kevin Knight maybe winning this match. But
be a tough sell, but that would have been an interesting listen.
Yeah. So we're all picking Will Ospreay. Who are you picking in the TNT Championship, Ben?
For the sake of this show, I'll go with Daniel Garcia.
No. For the sake of the show, you're not going to be on the show again if you say for sake of the show. Okay?
Well,
who do you actually think is going to win the match?
I think Adam Cole is going to win the match, but I don't necessarily think that he's going to, I don't necessarily want the TNT title on him in his current state. So I don't know. I'll say Adam Cole, because I don't think Daniel Garcia is doing anything for that belt, but I don't necessarily want this to be a lengthy title run for Adam Cole in this state.
Some of me want disqualification with no time limit and no outside interference.
Double DQ. That's how the match finishes.
Or there's a count out and then someone comes out to restart the match and then it's a DQ.
Oh, yes. Very nice.
Yeah.
The worst version of a dusty finish you can imagine. I love it.
The dustiest of finishes.
Yes.
I just don't. I have no idea what they're doing with Daniel Garcia or Adam Cole. So where would Adam Cole go if he doesn't win the title? I don't know. Like I'm picking Adam Cole because I just don't see another option for them at this time. And they can put the belt on a name guy and hopefully they can do something. But this match, like, would you say that Daniel Garcia is in a group or not? Do you think he's a solo wrestler or do you think he's part of a group?
He's a solo wrestler with a lot of friends?
Question mark?
Question mark?
Yeah.
He's got, 2.0.
Yeah.
As his buddies?
Question mark?
Yeah.
Okay. My whole point here is, so we have Daniel Garcia and friends against Undisputed Kingdom. Meanwhile, on this card, the Hurt Syndicate against the Learning Tree, the Death Riders against Rated FTR. Remember, the Don Callis family is just not on this card. We got a lot of groups going on. And I know we've said that before, but there's a lot of groups going on in AEW. Too many. The Hurt Syndicate against the Learning Tree. Ben, when I'm watching the storyline and it's MJF with the Hurt Syndicate, and it's not really about the Hurt Syndicate's title defense coming up at the pay-per-view, I'm like, I understand that there was another injury, but if you want to try to sell me on the fact that Brian Cage was somehow going to win the World Tag Team Championships, newsflash, he wasn't. So I don't care that there was an injury in this one because there's no difference to me between Brian Cage, Lance Archer, and Big Bill and Brian Keith. So I don't know why the World Tag Team titles are on the line and the storyline's about MJF, not about the Hurt Syndicate. But Ben, tell me why you're picking the Learning Tree.
I would never, ever, ever, ever pick the Learning Tree.
Okay.
Here's two guys that just take up space on this roster. Brian Keith and Big Bill. Literally, I don't understand why they signed Brian Keith. They've got 20 or 30 guys better than him on the roster, and he's taking up TV time. Big Bill works as an enforcer, and he's got a little bit of personality, but he peaked with Enzo Amore. So I have actually really enjoyed the Hurt Syndicate as a tag team, as a unit. So like, I'm excited to see them kick some butt. But again, I find this whole card is very top heavy, and there's a lot of matches, this one included, that I really don't care for. The only thing that maybe I'm excited for in terms of like where this is potentially going is if they were doing Brian Cage and Lance Archer versus Hurt Syndicate at Dynasty, maybe a Double or Nothing, then you're getting the other half of the Don Callis family, and you're getting Takeshita and Fletcher, who are tagging on Collision on Saturday night. So maybe that's why they're not on the show this time, is they're waiting to build it up to Double or Nothing, or possibly All In. But unfortunately, the 4-week in between pay-per-views has meant that it's a very quick build. They've had to pivot on a bunch of matches, and guys that shouldn't be left off the card are being left off the card for guys like Big Bill and Brian Keith. So
right.
They're never going to win. So, this is 2 matches where there's not really any doubt as to who's winning the match, in my opinion. So I'm hoping that the top half of the card will save this pay-per-view, because on paper right now, I'm not as fired up for it as I was Revolution.
And Zach, I think my point here more about the Hurt Syndicate is remind me who they faced in the last pay-per-view for the World Tag Team titles. All right, Zach's favorite team, the team that I went out and had a hot tub and missed the entire match and was very thankful, the Outrunners.
That's right.
So you're telling me that the Hurt Syndicate get the tag team titles and Booker of the Year in 2 straight pay-per-views has them defending the World Tag Team Championships, and the top 2 teams are the Outrunners and the Learning Tree? These are the top 2 teams, and isn't this why you have records? And even if somebody gets hurt, you have another team that's willing to step in.
Well, you're gonna get me on my rankings rant again, and I'm not gonna do that.
Oh,
and
please
you're gonna box me in saying I think Tony Khan is the Booker of the Year when I've just been negative on Paul Levesque.
Well, I think you have to just admit here that the tag team championships are not exactly a priority for the Booker of the Year in TK.
Oh, I trying to box me in and saying I think
I'm not
Tony
trying
Khan's
to do anything.
Yeah,
I'm trying to tell you that the Outrunners and Big Bill and Brian Keith are the 4 challengers in the last 2 months on pay-per-view.
I agree. It's not good. Don't yell at me. I agree. I'm in agreement here. I think a little tough on the Learning Tree, Big Bill and Brian Keith. A little tough there. I think they have their spot. I think they have their value on the roster. But yeah, I agree. I want this to be more of a tag team match. I think the Hurt Syndicate has been getting over, though. They've been getting their crowd chants. Like, people really like the gimmick. And the one thing we can never forget with the Hurt Syndicate is that they hurt people. And I think that's the main thing that people need to take away with the Hurt Syndicate.
You exhaust me, Zach.
You were the one yelling at me. I didn't say anything.
I know, and you still exhaust me.
That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
No, it's a tag team Tony Khan problem. Is what it is.
Trying to say I think Tony Khan's the Booker of the Year just because I don't like Paul Levesque's booking. Boxing me into a corner here.
All right, Ben, I am going to get to something I'm looking forward to. It is the first round matchup in the Women's Owen Hart Cup tournament, and I want you to maybe tell a little bit of a story on why this one is going to be so important. Mercedes Moné, TBS champ, against former TBS champ Julia Hart in the first round, makes it onto pay-per-view.
Oh boy, my 6-year-old daughter is devastated about this match because she's literally so torn about who she wants to win it. Literally her 2 favorite wrestlers on the planet going against each other. And she has literally told me, she's like, Dad, I don't know who I'm going to pick. I have to put it on paper. It's not like when it's on a regular show and I don't have to decide. She's like, it's pay-per-view. I have to pick. And so
first of all, that is not Booker of the Year, Zach, Father of the Year.
Yes, definitely that. Yes, for sure.
6-year-old really torn up about that she has to make a selection come Sunday night.
So she's absolutely devastated because she doesn't want to have to pick. She was explaining to me, funny how 6-year-old's brain work, like who her favorite wrestlers were because these 2 were facing off against each other. And I was trying to explain it to her, like, it doesn't matter who you pick. You could still enjoy both of them. I said, Swerve and Hangman fight each other, and I have to pick who I think is going to win, but it doesn't really matter in the end. And she just is so she's so afraid. Literally, she says, like, I'm afraid for the pay-per-view. I don't want to pick. So as soon as I saw that this match was being announced, and she was sitting with me watching Dynamite as it got announced, and her jaw just kind of dropped, and she couldn't believe what was happening. And then she went on this huge rant about how her favorite 4 wrestlers that are boys, in quotations, are Will Ospreay, Swerve Strickland, Orange Cassidy, Crazy Guy, who is Mark Briscoe, and sometimes Hangman Page.
I love Crazy Guy. Crazy Guy's a great wrestler.
Yeah. Loved that Mark Briscoe. But yeah, so I'm super excited that this match got put on the pay-per-view because Julia Hart hasn't really built up a lot of momentum since coming back from injury. So I think this is a huge test for her against somebody who typically, if she's got the right partner, she can make people look really good in Mercedes Moné. Also, light enough to take the moneymaker finisher, possibly smoothly? Question mark.
Yeah.
She might be the same size or smaller than Mercedes Moné. So I'm hoping that this is kind of like a breakthrough reestablishing match for Julia Hart, because I don't think there's any chance that Mercedes Moné loses. I'd be pleasantly surprised if she did, because it's not for any of her titles, so you could probably get away with that. But excited for this match because I think it's something that Julia Hart desperately needs to kind of shoot her back up in terms of significance in AEW.
And Zach, I concur with Ben there about. I just hope it's a good match. Don't think Julia Hart has a chance to win this match, because when you look at the bracket for the OM, Mercedes Moné and Athena look like they're on a collision course in the semifinals of that tournament. So I'm just excited for that Mercedes Moné. I don't mind a match like this because she's like 4 belts, but she's the TBS champion. I'm okay with her not defending a television championship on a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with the tournament format that they've got here. I agree. I don't have an issue with that. I'm gonna agree with all of you. I'm not gonna stray off the beaten path and go Julia Hart. I'm gonna go with Mercedes Moné. I want to see a little bit more from Julia Hart here. I think she was kind of growing as a performer. Now, granted, she has been off. She was off for a little bit there, but I'd like to kind of see her get back on the train of her. Whenever I see her on TV, she was somebody that was getting better and better. And I think this would be the perfect opponent to have a great match with, especially at this setting. So, interested to see how this goes. I've got Mercedes Moné getting the victory here.
And I think what's interesting, as a quick thought on the Owen Women's Tournament, is that it really looks like Billy Starks is going to make the final on the one side, to me. And then you have Mercedes Moné and Athena, who I'm assuming Athena facing Harley Cameron somewhere down the road in the first round. I'm assuming that Mercedes Moné and Athena are going to meet in the semis. There's a history, obviously, with Billy Starks and Athena. And there's a history because they've already wrestled, Mercedes Moné and Billy Starks. What do you think, Ben, the final will be?
I actually think Jamie Hayter's going to the final. I think that,
really?
yeah, I'm going to go Jamie Hayter in the final versus Athena. And that we'll end up getting a rematch between Athena and Mercedes for the TBS title at All In.
Okay. After Athena wins the tournament that Mercedes was in.
Yeah.
What about you, Zach?
I've been kind of juggling it because I could totally see the Billy Starks Athena final take place at Double or Nothing. That's something that they built in Ring of Honor and might want to take to the television screens. I could also see them doing Chris Statlander and Mercedes Moné and running that back based on the match that they had on pay-per-view a while back. And those two have some very good chemistry. I disagree with Ben in the sense that Jamie Hayter's getting past the first round. I don't think so. I think Billy Starks is going to make a run here. I think they're going to go. I think they're going to go Athena Billy Starks in the final. And I think what's going to happen here is you're going to have Mercedes Moné take on Athena. Athena will beat Mercedes Moné so that you can have the win over her whilst having Moné keep the title, and you can set up the program afterwards if you wanted to for the TBS championship. And that can be something that hangs over Mercedes' head. So that's how I view this tournament taking place.
Yeah, the only issue with that is when you get to Double or Nothing and Athena and Billy Starks are wrestling. Yeah, again, hardcore crowd knows the history. Can you bring that to a casual audience? And what's Mercedes Moné going to do at Double or Nothing? Is she going to defend that TBS championship there? And if she does, is she secondary to the final of the women's tournament? I'm not sure, but I would agree with you. I think Billy Starks is in the final. Yeah. I don't think, to me, there's almost no question that that's going to happen.
So hold on. So you guys think Athena or Billy Starks is facing Tony Storm or Megan Bayne at All In?
I think there's a chance, yes.
Do I think Athena's gonna face Tony Storm? Yes,
Yeah?
absolutely.
In Texas, you don't think they'll run back Athena and Mercedes Moné for the TBS title?
I think
And
that's
then do Hayter versus Storm?
uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
This is why Ben's on the show, Zach.
There you go.
Finally bringing something like 35 minutes into the show or whatever we're in. Finally. I do think that both Mercedes Moné and Athena are going to be heavily featured at All In. That I do believe. So how are they going to do it? Do you think that one of them wins the tournament? Like, how do you see this playing out again, Ben?
So Athena beats Mercedes, but it's non-title.
In
But
the
loses,
semis?
yeah, in the semis, but loses to Hayter in the finals,
Yeah.
setting up a rematch between Athena and Mercedes for the TBS title. And Hayter challenges Tony Storm for the women's title at All In for winning the tournament.
I always have to remember, because when we get to our Will Ospreay discussion coming up about Forbidden Door being the next pay-per-view in the UK, not long after All In. Tony Storm and Jamie Hayter, how they get there. But I do think, I really thought that Billy Starks would run the table, but I'm starting to come over to your side a little bit. So just for the sake of this show, I'm picking Mercedes Moné against Julia Hart. We're going to move on.
Whoa, wait, whoa.
second here.
Hold on.
Right, this is a
pump the
Dynasty
brakes.
preview.
Yeah.
Dynasty.
Yeah,
Three
yeah,
words
yeah.
for you, Zach.
Pump-
Dynasty.
Pump the brakes. There's three people on this show. I gotta get some takes in as well. You know, I listen to hear what you're saying, Ben, and I definitely hear it. I have a tough time with Jamie Hayter. I really do, because while she's been on TV, I don't know if she's been particularly featured to the point where I can sit back and say, well, that's a future title contender, especially at All In. I have a better feeling with Chris Statlander, honestly, than Jamie Hayter. Not saying I would pick her, but you know, I have a tough time with that. I feel like that they want to bring this to a bigger stage. And I will say, I'm throwing it out there as well. I don't think she's winning, but you can't rule out either Harley Cameron, because she's been also pretty featured. They've been trying to keep her on TV. She had the match with Mercedes, that she's somebody that's still over to the crowd. And so I hear what you're saying here, Ben. I like the idea of Jamie Hayter versus Tony Storm, but I'm going to stick with the Billy Starks Athena stuff. And I'm going to pick Athena to win the final. And I understand what you're saying about Mercedes Moné, but I think that'll be something that will play out a little bit later. I don't think this is something when it comes to this story with Mercedes and Athena that you could play out a little bit longer. And so I think there's more that they could work with here. So I'm going to stick with my pick.
Right. Just so that you don't think I'm getting off the hook, I think Billy Starks is going to win the tournament.
Wow. Okay.
And they did. I do agree with you, Zach. Logic, like, that's great fantasy booking, Ben, and I appreciate it. But I'll have to go back to that. They have featured Billy Starks on television. They have brought her in. They put her in a match. She lost to Mercedes Moné. She's back in the tournament. We really haven't seen a focus on Jamie Hayter. Now, you can absolutely have an argument that we should, but we haven't. So I'm going to pick Billy Starks to win this whole thing and go up against Tony Storm. And then you can still have Mercedes Moné and Athena at Double or Nothing or All In. And I think they're both going to be featured very heavily at All In. We do have to move on. So Chris Jericho against Bandito. hasn't been announced as of this taping, 3 days before the event. However, do we think that they're going to wrestle, Ben? And do you think there'll be stipulations on the match if they do?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge went out, mask versus title. I can't see Bandito losing his mask, so I think if that match happens, it's either going to be Bandito winning the belt or some sort of outside interference shenanigans where we don't really get a finish. But it also wouldn't surprise me if this just gets pushed to either Ring of Honor's pay-per-view or to a Dynamite or a Collision main event, because I don't think it needs to be on the card.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't think there's any way that Bandito's being unmasked, Zach, in any scenario.
But Lee and Ben, we're talking about the modern day Hulk Hogan here and Chris Jericho.
I know.
I mean,
know.
The guy just wins all of his matches, and he just.
You're right. Bandito, Rey Mysterio, same thing. Unmask the guy, babyface. Let's go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, pin him with a pencil, Chris Jericho. That's what I want to see. Pin him with the pencil. And Bandito just gonna get buried, 10 feet under the sun. If it's not this pay-per-view, it's gonna be the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. They've built this up. They had the pre-show match, where they had Bandito's brother lose his mask, and so they've been building this up not too badly. I think there is some heat to the feud. You know what I feel about Chris Jericho and how I think he's a little overhated, because I think he's just Chris Jericho at this point, and he's just been featured so much that I think people would just want him off the TV and think he's bad. And he's not been great in every match, but I certainly do not believe he is the modern day Hulk Hogan. But all that to say, if this match does happen on this pay-per-view, I'm also picking Bandito to get the victory.
Yep. All right. Kenny Omega, Ricochet, and Speedball Mike Bailey. 3-way match for the AEW International Championship. Ben.
Where's that time machine where you go back and clip stuff? Because in the Revolution preview show, I said that we're building to the unification of the International and Continental Championship, and that Kenny Omega was going to win the International Championship, and that's what he did. He's going to retain here, and we're building all the way back to Okada versus Omega at All In. But I'm super excited for this match. Big showcase for Speedball Mike Bailey. This match is probably going to be possibly match of the night, depending on what you think happens in that main event. But definitely one of the matches that I'm most excited for on the card.
I don't see any way Kenny Omega is losing. Zach, convince me otherwise.
Oh, I can't. I want to give some sort of different take, but I can't. I was kind of hoping that this would be a singles match. I would have been A-okay with Kenny Omega, Speedball Mike Bailey, knowing that Bailey was going to take the pin, because these are two guys, and my philosophy, where if you've got two really great wrestlers and you have them go out there and have a really great match, it's not going to hurt the guy. And so I think if it was a one-on-one between Omega and Speedball, it was not going to hurt Speedball if he lost, because he would be losing to Kenny Omega in a great match for the title.
Yep.
And it would establish him on the card. So frankly, I will say, despite you saying I am bowing at the feet of Tony Khan and calling him the Booker of the Year.
Booker of the Year.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just sitting there, just getting my votes in already and writing down Tony Khan at this point. I think it's cowardly that they made this a 3-way and put Ricochet in here from a booking standpoint.
Yeah, I do too. There's no reason to put Ricochet into this match. Having
said all of that, I think this will be a very good match. And I've got Kenny Omega retaining the title.
Timeless Tony Storm with Luther against Megan Bayne. Zach? Can Megan Bayne retain some sort of heat and credibility and not win?
I think that's what they're betting on here with this. I've got Timeless Tony Storm retaining. I think they're going to find a way with Megan Bayne. The thing with Megan Bayne right now, when I've seen her on TV, is she has... I think there's a little bit of an underwhelming presence for me right now. Mm-hmm. There's more that I want from her when it comes to how she presents herself on TV, because she certainly has the look. She certainly, like, when you put her on a poster or something like that, you're like, okay, that is a pro wrestler. That's somebody that you can point to and say, yeah, that's a pro wrestler. but I think there's more that she could do from a charisma standpoint to really make her stand out. I think it's too early to kind of go into this. I like the booking of this, the way that they put it together, especially with the short time frame that they've been able to put this together. But I've got Timeless Toni Storm retaining here. I think Megan Bane's a strong enough wrestler, and I think Toni Storm's a strong enough wrestler where, and I think they'll find something to keep Megan Bane strong. But I've got Toni Storm retaining.
Ben?
Could you get behind hotshotting Megan Bane into superstardom by having her pull off this unexpected upset? I think you could. Smart money would be to pick Toni Storm, so that's what I'm going to do. But I think it'd be very interesting to see if you could even just do a short title run with Megan Bane, and maybe even Toni Storm gets it back or something like that, or you have her even drop the title at Double or Nothing to somebody else, depending on how you want to build All In. But for the reason that I spoke about earlier in terms of setting up Hayter versus Toni Storm at All In, I will pick Toni Storm.
Yeah, I actually don't disagree with what you said about hotshotting Megan Bane in there, but not right after Toni Storm's latest victory. Too soon. Toni Storm's winning. Can they keep her hot? We'll see. Does Camille come back at some point? And would you guys like to see Camille and Megan Bane fight? Ben?
Would not like to see it.
Double negative, Zach.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be fine. I mean, I'm not super invested in Camille. You kind of, I don't know what's happening with her. They kind of wrote her off, and we haven't heard much since. So, if they're not invested, I'm not invested. But
It sounds like she's coming back, though.
maybe. Yeah, like I said, I'd see it. I don't necessarily need to see it on a pay-per-view. It could be on Dynamite or Collision or something like that, or whenever their next big weekly special show is, or something like that. But yeah, I'd be fine with it.
With the Queen of the Ring promotion that's been going on with that movie and how Camille has been involved, she's not been featured on AEW, if I recall, in the promotion of the film. So I find that interesting. I don't know what's going on there, if she's just in the doghouse or whatnot and, pissed the wrong person off. So I don't know. In terms of a match between Camille and Megan Bane, I'm not exactly jumping out of my seat and hooting and hollering for that match, but I'm sure if you had the face off, it would get some people talking, but it doesn't really wow me or anything like that.
Well, hopefully we get to a match that is going to wow you guys, because we really haven't had that many so far. So let's get to the Death Riders and rated FTR. This one seems it is for the Trios Championship, Ben. It does seem like they're a little bit focused on what this rated FTR, what's happening with FTR, why are they disagreeing, what's going to happen here. And that seems to be the focus rather than on the Trios Championships, which again, it's another match for a championship that the focus doesn't seem to be necessarily on the championship. Your pick, Ben.
I will pick the Death Riders for the reason that I think we are going to see the breakup of rated FTR, with FTR turning heel on Cope, eventually setting up Cope and Christian Cage versus FTR at All In. And I think think that is why you're seeing the importance of the drama between rated FTR.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. There's nothing left to do here with Adam Copeland other than to get him somehow, some way into a match with Christian. And if you had FTR on the side of the family, the patriarchy, I'm all for it. So regardless of what they do, I do see FTR kind of turning heel, getting back into kind of the tag team that they want to be. And I completely agree. The Death Riders are winning this match. Zach?
I am also going to pick the Death Riders for a lot of the reasons that you guys have said. I think the bigger story here is what's happening within Rated FTR than the actual title match itself. So I'm going to pick the Death Riders to retain their belts.
All right. Let's get to the World Heavyweight Championship. I didn't miss anything, did I, guys?
No, I think you got everything here based on my run sheet.
Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship. Benjamin, you are up first.
Oh, see, there's two paths in front of me. I'm like Paul Atreides and Dune. I can see two paths. One is the main event of Forbidden Door in the UK. The other is the main event of All In Texas. And after chatting with Mr. Versage this afternoon, I'm hemming and hawing about what is going to happen in this match. Are we going to get Will Ospreay challenging for the title in the UK at Forbidden Door, or is he walking in as champion? And how do we work backwards from there? But for my pick, especially after how Dynamite ended last night, with the spot between Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland, it's going to be Swerve Strickland walking out of Dynasty 2 years in a row with the AEW Championship with an assist from Hangman Page.
So just to explain to people who did not see it, at the very end, after, of course, Claudio was in the main event, they had to do something else to actually be the main event. So they did a backstage segment where Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland were yelling at each other. And as they were yelling at each other, they got to you broke into my house, you burned my house down. And when Hangman Page said, you burned my house down, Swerve Strickland said, well, Hangman said, you deserved it. And he said, I know. And where Hangman Page did a double take, kind of looked at him a little differently, and then took off the other way, a full admission that Swerve Strickland was in the wrong for doing that to Hangman Page in the first place and breaking into his house.
And then during the beatdown of Swerve, the crowd has kind of figured out where I'm going with this. The crowd started chanting for Hangman Page, chanting cowboy shit, and hoping that he would come down to make the save. But I think that's being saved for Dynasty's main event.
Mm-hmm. Zach, your pick.
I have also been hemming and hawing at this, but not from the perspective of, is this guy going to main event All In or whatnot? I will say, in my mind, whoever wins this match is going to main event All In Texas. That's my thought process with these two. I have been somebody that's been looking at the Darby Allin factor of all this, and I do think he will play a role in the Death Rider stuff somehow, some way. And for a time going into this, I thought that Jon Moxley was going to retain the title. And you would get the uproar, obviously, from some fans that Swerve would have lost. And, people would have been upset about Swerve. But as the TV has progressed over the last couple of weeks, and I've seen it all play out, and as you mentioned, Swerve Strickland doing his best Han Solo impression, saying I know to Hangman Page. So I look at it all, and I am going to switch my pick, and I'm also going to pick Swerve Strickland to get the victory here and beat Jon Moxley. I think what will happen here is you'll get your classic Death Riders running to try and get involved, but I think you might see Hangman Page get involved in that run-in as well. And that will be kind of the indicator of, is he starting to turn more towards Swerve Strickland after what he said on Dynamite this past week? Or is it, is he going to beat him up? I think you'll have that question. I also think Darby Allin will return at this pay-per-view to kind of set up what's going on with Jon Moxley as well, and set up that feud. And so all that to say, I think you're getting a lot of storylines intertwining here And that's something that AEW loves to do, is they love to intertwine some stories, especially in their main event angles. And I think it will eventually lead to Swerve Strickland getting the title back. And with him winning the title, I think he's going to main event All In. So that is my pick.
Lee, do you want to break it to Zach?
Do I want to break what to Zach?
How long it takes to climb Mount Everest?
Well, again, Ben has gone into the weeds here, and look, Darby Allin is 12 days away from climbing Mount Everest. Is he not, Ben?
Yeah, apparently leaving on the 15th.
Or Ben's been duped, Zach. So let's leave room for Ben being duped. However, it takes 2 months, give or take, to climb Mount Everest. And if he's already sort of on the way and there and preparing, and it takes 2 months to climb, and they say a month to recovery, while your Darby Allin pick might be good, it's not going to be in the next couple of months. I'm having a difficult time with this one because I could see the one X factor to me is still that Swerve Strickland is arguing with Prince Nana. Still. And I don't like that. However, I do think Swerve Strickland's going to be in the main event of All In. And therefore, I am picking him to once again win the championship. This is not just, it's just not been a good run here for Jon Moxley. And he already ended the last pay-per-view and a couple pay-per-views and wins with, I would call them, not exactly fantastic matches at the end to win. They've been kind of the duds where other people have stepped up and done it. And they need somebody back here to be able to do it. They're going to go into the summer with Swerve. I do think we're going to see some combination of Swerve, Hangman, and Ospreay in your world title picture coming up in the next few months. I don't think that includes Jon Moxley, who's gone on a big run here and might go home and have a rest. But I am picking Swerve Strickland to win the AEW World Championship. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did anybody have any picks that are different on the entire card?
I think we were pretty much in line.
I think unanimous.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we've really given you a lot to think about, listener.
Yeah.
We're trying hard, but we have to be honest with what we think is going to happen. And if we all go perfect, I promise you, we'll all come back on and tell you how perfect we were coming up next week. But AEW Dynasty coming up on Sunday night in Philadelphia. Ben Soubliere, enthusiast for AEW. We thank you for your time. Thank you.
No problem. Anytime. Always happy to complete the trio. After 2 trio shows this week, we need to find out some sort of way to differentiate us, kind of like how there's the Elite and the Super Click and the Hung Bucks. We got to figure out what the different trios are, depending on if it's me or Tanner.
Well, that's a good point. It's a good point. The enthusiasts. A little wordy.
All enthusiasts wrestling. That's what we are.
Zach, always great to talk to you. And we're looking forward to not only recapping Dynasty coming up at the beginning of next week. We should tell people that Dark Side of the Ring, there's another episode out, Ludwig Borga, episode number 2. We got Big Van Vader coming up next week, and we do those as separate episodes. You can go to This Is Wrestling where you find it and listen to our recaps of the Dark Side of the Ring. And we'll have to talk about coming up next week, another defection. Sounds like that Rusev is back from being Miro and Zach Sky. Will he be Zach Sky in WWE once again? We'll find out next week. But Zach, always good to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. The announcement coming on Rusev Day, no less, as Tanner pointed out in our group chat here with Ben. So what a big announcement for WWE, if that is the case.
Oh boy. And we end on that. So for Ben Soubliere and Zach McGibbon, I'm Lee Versage. Thanks again for listening to This Is Wrestling.